Alex Chow was the creative director of Vogue magazine. So we were just sitting at a bar one time and we were like, why can't we just hear music we want to hear, whatever it is, you know? Black Eyeliner is kind of defunct at this point. I mean, it was kind of a Beijing thing, and kind of every once, yeah, it was just a party thing. It was a really fun party thing, but you know, it sometimes comes back. But what it is, I mean, I guess the easiest way to describe it is just my interests.
Okay.
Plain and simple. I mean, it's the things I love to do, and Solid Spade that comes from my thesis project in 2005, actually, which is a piece of hardware I built, musical instrument that I built. It's that big Darth Vader thing with all the touch stuff. That comes from that. So, because I was kind of lack of, what should I call myself? After I quit a bunch of bands and had a bunch of other bands, and you know, DJ Bacon doesn't sound that great. Fairly advanced for the time. So 2005, it was a capacitive touch interface. Like a PCB that's about that big with rotary dials and full octave keyboard and so on. And then a 15-inch touchscreen and what was a mini computer at the time, like a mini computer about this big, Linux computer inside. And you could do a whole lot of stuff with it. Lots of different things with it. You had a full Linux OS as your base, so you could you know, connect to networks, you could do OSC, you could do, you know, a whole number of things. But then it was built on using kind of jack and port audio. But everybody's going to know these things, but jack is an open source audio framework that allows you to do MIDI, allows you to program DSP for like distortions and stuff like that, sequencers, all these kinds of things. So it's kind of based on that, built on that, and then custom software also that I built because it's touch. So at that time, like the capacitive touch, which would be like these kind of things, these kind of touch interfaces, you just were seeing them on the market, at least in the West, through like your iPods.
Right.
And the iPhone was just about to come out. So that technology was really, like, I guess it was cutting edge in the sense that it was really hard to get the hardware to do it. So with that, I actually signed an NDA with Apple not to sell my product for 10 years to be able to use the chips. And it was a performance piece for art shows that it did. So I kind of traveled around and did a bunch of different art shows in China, different other places. And then I just use it for shows now. Dogma comes from 1993 when the internet opened. I am that old. So I was born in 1975, so when I graduated, it was 93, and that was when ARPANET, or DARPANET, became the internet, and or commercial, and I somewhat was lucky because my mother had bought me a computer when I was younger, plus I had WizNet, which is kind of a Wisconsin network dial-up, so you can timeshare on computers and stuff, on mainframes and stuff. So I was really lucky because I knew all this stuff about computers, so I became like one of the heads of Unix and Linux of the largest data center within the 90s, with no education in that area. My undergrad is different things. But, so in 1994, I bought dogma.org as a domain. So that name just kind of comes from that. I had the name Dogma. Yeah, so I had the name Dogma as a domain. So when my partner and I decided to start up kind of a new company or new platform, it was like, I have this name Dogma, let's just use Dogma. Plus it kind of fit with what we think about design and art, which is to kind of break the dogma rules of those things. I mean, technically the latest version of Dogma, which is kind of the more commercial plus art platform, that would be like 3 years ago when we moved to Shanghai. Okay. Before that, we had different variations of kind of like an open platform, kind of not a maker space or anything like that, but just kind of a place where we can do things.
Okay.
but we still have it as, it's kind of our place to do experimental things for ourselves. So we have another company on top of this now called, it's actually called UFO. Nothing against Wu Ju Wei and those guys. It was actually, we were looking for names, and I just suggested, we needed a Chinese name, so I was just like, oh, let's just put, let's see if they have UFO, and they ended up having UFO, so we're the Shanghai UFO Arts and Culture Limited Company, whatever it goes. Again, we could go back into history. So like in the 90s and 2000s, I was in a lot of bands. I was in a couple of bands that I started, which were more like goth, industrial, pop, that kind of stuff. We did a lot of touring and that kind of stuff. Did a bunch of DJing, and then I kind of gave up when I didn't give up, but I just put it on the side when I became a professor. Focused on kind of doing that for a while. Then when I was in Beijing, Black Island happened as a joke. Between myself, Alex Chow, and some other people. Alex Chow was the creative director of Vogue magazine. So we were just sitting at a bar one time and we were like, why can't we just hear music we want to hear, whatever it is, So it was a party. And you can only party for so long before you want to be serious again. And I love making music, I love live music. DJing is fun, it's great to go to clubs to watch that stuff, but I'd rather go most of the time go and see live acts, and especially experimental electronic. It's my, if there's anything I do outside of everything else is music. It's like helping people that don't always get a chance to play. It's letting myself play sometimes. I was up in Beijing for long enough that one of the things I wanted to see in Shanghai was a nice rotation of not just like the rock bands or the indie bands coming down through here, but the electronic artists coming down too. So, we brought down, or experimental and stuff. So we've had everybody from like White Plus and Snapline to Noise Arcade, who's playing tonight, to, Ear Snail, to just a lot of different people, coming down. So I want to keep that rotation kind of happening because there's not a lot of venues or shows in Shanghai that kind of give a place for like traveling electronic musicians, especially from like other areas. Like in the US, there's lots of venues for people to play at, depending on the city and stuff. But like there wasn't, when I came down here 3 years ago from Beijing, yeah, there are places you could go play like Yunintong and stuff like that, but there's not like one central place where you could say, hey, I've got these electronic bands coming through, or bring some of these artists down. That would be easy pairing with other electronic artists or experimental artists. You have Han Han that does Centaurs. That's a little more broad within more guitar-y stuff that was happening at the time. That's moved to more electronic, which is cool. But yeah, I think I just felt like there's a need to create something that I would go to. I like to go to events where you have a lot of different things going on. Like, new media is an area that I've been involved in a lot for a really long time. I don't necessarily consider myself a new media artist or anything like that, but I enjoy those kind of like sensory environments where you have video, where you have different sound interaction, and the fusion with music is natural, right? And so I think a lot of times when you go to a gallery show where there's a sound piece or there's a live sound act happening, there's usually very intense visuals attached. But a lot of times when you go to a club night, or like if you go to a club night, there's usually video of some sort, or a VJ, but it doesn't always fit the music or fit the theme. But then when you go to live electronic acts, or even just any kind of live show in general, there's usually nothing or very little until you get to a certain like budget level or fame level where they have enough people to be able to do all these things. So tends to be a lack of that. Not completely. There's a lot of people that do stuff singular, like for themselves. But I want this event to be more than just the music. So I spent a lot of time creating all the different videos. So some of it's programming. I do a lot of stuff with Google Deep Dream. Some of it's open frameworks and like interactive with Connect. Some of it's audio, reactive. Some of it's just video that I like that I've messed around with. Now, granted, I have a particular kind of dark, weird taste, trippy, dark taste, so it might not actually fit everybody who's playing. So sometimes people have their own. It's cool. But I just do it because I think it's interesting. I think it gives more depth to. Let's be honest. Watching most electronic musicians is kind of boring.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Really,
you know,
yeah.
not always, but you know, sometimes they are. You know, it's especially when it gets. You have to shoot myself for this one because I'm gonna do a lot of this tonight. But you know, especially when it's a laptop and it's like press play. You know, it's actually nothing wrong with that. They've done a lot of work making that music and stuff like that. But you know, watching somebody press play is what is stimulating
Yeah,
as
exactly.
watching somebody press play. You know, let's give some other things happening.
Right,
And it was,
exactly.
so part of it too is I guess in the grander plan is to have actual artists come in and do things, do installations and you know visually and stuff. But it's been, I mean, this is one thing I do amongst a lot of things. So
Right, yeah.
you know, it's
sounds
just
like
it's you know it's like for the latest videos. This is something I was telling Gaz before. You know, I'd come to Friday, Saturday, working throughout the week. Friday, Saturday, come to all, go home, 2 in the morning, 3, 4 in the morning, work on the videos all day until the next time I go to all.
Yeah.
You know, just like
Yeah, yeah,
that's how it was going for a couple of months now. The interesting point is people come to just take pictures, but there is a real big, I don't want to say it's a problem, but there's, you know, you start getting into like the theory of Sherry Turkle and all these types of people who are like, you know, together and alone at the same time with our social media and with everything like that. I am sure there are people that have done that before, even if it's a single person, just because our societies have become so focused on, you know, these mobile devices and these kind of quick fixes of dopamine to the brain. You know, there's an interesting study that I just read where even having like one of these phones out and just sitting on a table like this, like to ignore it, every time you look at it, you still get the dopamine rush. Like you have to get that thing hidden away before you not get that dopamine rush, you know? So just flipping it over and setting it there, your mind, your eyes will still keep going back to it, you know, even if you're trying to ignore it, because you get this little rush, you know? You start to see with an AI that there are people trying to program AI in such a way that they can write scripts for movies, they can write music and so on and so forth. That becomes automated, I think, until AI gets that next step to cognitive thought, or cognitive emotion. I don't know how you quite say it. But that part's going to take a lot longer. As far as transhumanism, we're going to see that develop faster because, like with prosthetics, putting magnets on your fingers, brain-computer interfaces. So right now, prosthetics are to that same point now where in 5 years, you're going to have arms that are faster, stronger, more agile. You can change them out, and they're going to be better than the human arm. Then that begs the question, who's going to cut off their arm to replace it? And there are going to be people. I don't know if I would. I'm into transhumanism in different ways, but maybe I would. I mean, it depends on the situation. But you're going to see military do it first, and you're going to see kind of underground kind of hacker grinders do it first. I'm more interested, not necessarily in having a stronger Superman body type thing, but is access to information, access to extrasensory data or feelings and stuff. So like the magnets I've implanted, you could feel electricity, you could affect things from different heights because of the magnetic fields, right?
Okay.
I had 3, and 3 are gone because I needed to get them in to do the projects I was doing. So at the time I couldn't get titanium nitride plated magnets. So I just used gold plated magnets. They only last for about 3 months and they start corroding right away. They start corroding right away inside you. So, but I had to get them in to do the project. So I'm planning on putting them back in when you get the actual medical grade steel plated ones. But right now they're in really short, you can't get them right now. The one place that was making them in China that was they were being sold like in the US, they're having quality issues with them. So, I mean, I could do some research, probably find some place to get them, but yeah, I put the 3 in, and created a couple of musical interfaces and did some performances and shows with them, and then just had to take them out because they were just, I mean, I was pulling up magnets that were like half corroded and half missing, and it was kind of gross. But it was cool because you could actually feel, like if the microwave was,
Within your nervous system.
yeah, you could feel like the microwave being turned on in the same room. You could feel electrical grids, and it just tingles, it like tingles up your arm. Supposedly, if you have them in long enough, you just start feeling it in your like in more your central nervous system area. It's all pretty much in the West, and it's all online. In China, I don't think there's anyone. We did a lot of extensive looking. There are people that there's obviously like body augmentation is starting to get popular in China. You know, tongue rings, you know, just kind of augmentation, right? It's, you know, tattoos are starting to get popular, but the idea, I think, of like putting an RFID chip in you or putting like an LED, the glowy LED stuff that they have now that you can put in you, like the rings and stuff. I think that's still maybe a few years away here. It's hardware, and it's also a bio issue. Like, I mean, you're opening up your body and sticking things in, right? And yeah, you do have some of the early grinders that are just like, I'm at my kitchen table with a kitchen knife, cutting myself open and putting stuff in, but that's really unsafe, you know?
Yeah.
Like the way I did it was trying to be safe, but ended up being completely unsafe, right? Just because, you know, and having the right supplies and the right knowledge, like how do you numb your fingers with lidocaine and stuff like that? There's just a whole process there, and it's not saying that it's not going to happen here, and it probably has already happened. I'm not saying I'm the first person. There's just really hard to find examples of anything that is online, at least. And I went to a lot of the tattoo shops and piercing shops, and they all refused to do it, so I had to do it at home. It's a totally trick question because I feel okay here. I don't feel like apart from people. I feel like I can make friends with whoever. I've never had really any negative experiences over the 10 plus years I've been around. But then I know people who from day one have a negative experience, you know, and I don't know why one is one way and why one is the other. I mean, I tend to either keep to myself or just try to be really nice. But the other issue is, I wouldn't consider myself like an immigrant here, but as a new person per se, or like a first generation of somebody here, you know, maybe if I have a kid here or something like that, it'd be different. But no matter where you go, you're always somewhat set apart. In any, you know, if you go to the U.S. as a first generation or anything like that, I think no matter what you do, you always have that feeling, even if nobody else around you thinks of you that way. And I don't know what people around me think of me, but I've never felt like I was definitely apart. In the times when I do feel like there's a lack of connection, it's my own fault for not knowing Chinese as well, the language as well. I mean, my language is okay, but it's not as good as it could be, and it should be. That's my fault, that's nobody else's. Is there parts of the society that I probably could never be part of? Probably. Is it, you know, I respect that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean,
Yeah.
as far as like communities of like, let's say, clubs or undergrounds or music communities or things like that, I've never really had a problem with anybody. You know, it's like, I guess it's the same with anything. It's like, even if I don't necessarily like the music that they're making or they're playing or the art that they create, I still can be friends with them. You know, I don't have a division in my head, oh, they make this kind of music, I can't be friends with them. You know, I can totally be great friends with them. I think when it takes hold here on the community level or the non-scientific level, because that's one thing I should have said before. On the science professional level, yes, I'm sure China's just, and same with the US, we're pushing things in that way. On the military and medical research level, yes, we're pushing hard. I think most countries are, because they know that's what's happening. We're gonna be cyborgs before the robots take over. You know, we will be the cyborgs that take over. You know, it's not gonna be robots versus humans, not AI versus humans, it's gonna be cyborgs versus cyborgs. When you look at the singularity and you look at either the apocalypse of it, the negative view, or the Elon Musk or the Stephen Hawking view, which is the robots are going to come and kill us. Then you have the Kurzweil view, which is it's going to be all big happy family, and our toasters are going to sing to us, that kind of stuff. It's not going to be either of those, because the problem is the AI is going to take. We can program very specific tasks and have AI learn very specific things, but to get to that level of being cognitive and being able to make decisions based off kind of like non-rule sets, or to break the rule set, is really far away. The ability to augment ourselves or change our DNA for different, the Gattaca situation, the cyborg situation, that will come faster, and whoever has control of those technologies and being able to augment people for either military use or, brain interface where you can access data really fast, slicing up the DNA to be able to, using CRISPR and DNA to like create hyper intelligent people, whatever, all those combinations, that will happen faster in the growth period. So what we're going to probably see is human against human, augmented human against human, before the robots will come. There's so many people that I know in the university system, postdocs from the West, that come here because it's so unregulated. You can come here, yeah, you can come here and, no names or anything like that, but there's a guy that I know that was doing a bunch of neuroscience research. To use the MRI machine in the US, you have to book it usually a week in advance, and it costs a couple hundred, it costs like $30,000. Here you can use the MRI machine anytime you want, and it costs like 100 kwai. Wow. And you can do way wider worth of things, without having to get approvals. So, you want to shoot, radiation into somebody to track a certain type of neuron, and that, that radiation is untested or unproven if it's bad for you. Like a radiation ink, like an ink gel. And usually the colors they have different levels of radiation in them. You can just use them here without getting any kind of approval. Wow. And you can do a lot more testing here with so a lot of science.
Brings a new term
medical,
to experimental, or a new realm of experimental.
And it's like the dude that's going to do the human head transplant next year in.
Yeah, Sichuan?
Yeah, I think it's Sichuan. Yeah, a human head transplant. I mean, it's probably going to fail, but I mean, the fact that they're just allowing it to they're allowing it to happen, or there's an easy pathway to that without having documented, peer-reviewed science behind it. So there's just a lot more ability to do those things here. So I think it will probably try to get ahead faster, but also make a lot more mistakes. But you go back in the U.S. 50, 100 years ago, the same situation. We like to point our fingers at China, but we did the same damn thing 100 years ago. It's just fucking two-faced, So, excuse my language. I'm supposed to be fucking. So that's 2 times. So, okay. Yeah, but it's two-faced, because we did the same damn stuff in a lot of ways in different types of situations. But when it comes down to it, we killed off the American Indians. We did blah blah blah. We did lots of science and medical stuff that was not really ethical or moral.